Okay, when you are finished with your painting of your project, you need to add a layer of Mod Podge to it. Now, mine already has a layer on here, so that's why you can see it's kind of shiny. But if you look down here, you can see I haven't put any Mod Podge. So your project will be kind of a matte finish until you add the Mod Podge to it, okay? Now, the reason I didn't put any Mod Podge on the bottom is because if I put Mod Podge on here, it's a glue-like substance. So if I put Mod Podge on here and then flipped it over and let it dry, it would glue my project to my paper, okay? So we don't want to put any Mod Podge on any part of our project that touches the tabletop. When we go to add Mod Podge, I have little containers full of Mod Podge. Sometimes I'll write out the name on it. Sometimes I'll just put MP for Mod Podge. One of the key things to keep in mind is this is a glue-like substance, okay? So please make sure to wash out any Mod Podge brushes really well, or the bristles will glue together and we can no longer use the brush. So if you look here, I'm pressing really hard on here and it is barely moving. This is one that did not get rinsed out. Now, sometimes students will complain about the Mod Podge brushes we have available. So they are not our best quality brushes because we are trying to save those for paint, and since this is a glue-like substance, we are using some of our brushes that are on their last uses, right? So once you are ready to Mod Podge, you're gonna need a piece of newspaper, a piece of scrap paper underneath your project. You're gonna get a cup of Mod Podge, you're gonna get a Mod Podge brush. You're gonna dip your brush in the Mod Podge, and then you're just going to dab it onto your project, okay? Now my suggestion, I would start in the lightest areas first. Sometimes Mod Podge can cause your colors to smear, so it works out better if you do your Mod Podging in the lightest areas first, then you're less likely to have the darker colors smear into it. So for me, I would do all of the yellow first and get a nice layer of yellow, or a nice layer of Mod Podge on all of my yellow. I'm even gonna go behind the wings here, and I'm just gonna use my brush to dab this on, okay? Now, one thing you wanna avoid is putting big globs on. So if I put a big glob of Mod Podge on here, if this were to dry, it would make my project very foggy looking. It would kind of obscure or hide the colors under a layer of like this clear, foggy, paste, okay? So what we would do in this instance is we would take our brush and we would use our brush to spread that around. We could even wipe off the extra on our mat from our brush and then use the brush to go around the other areas. And make sure you get all of the sides. So like here, I need to make sure I get the sides of the tail. So anything that's sticking off of your project, make sure to do a coat of Mod Podge on it. So you can see I come back to this area and I'm still pulling some of the Mod Podge into the other areas. Then I would do the Mod Podge in your darkest areas last. If you happen to notice that the brush is spreading your color, okay, you'll want to rinse it out really good, dry it off really good, and then start over in whichever area you need to move on to, okay? So make sure to get your entire project covered. Now, if you're working with one of the pinch pot creatures, you also want to Mod Podge the inside if you've painted with watercolor, okay? So we're going to cover everything except for the very bottom or anything that touches the tabletop. We will not coat in Mod Podge. Once you are finished, you're going to put your lid back on your Mod Podge. You're going to put it back over in the Mod Podge tote tray. You're going to rinse out your brush really, 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 really well. So if you look here at this brush compared to this brush, you can see that there's some white showing. So when you wash it out, you want to wash it out twice as long as what you think, and you're going to rinse it against your hand while water runs over it until it's completely clean. You see no white remaining. There's no white coming out on your hand when you wash it out. All right. If you have any questions, let me know. Sometimes I will have a bucket of water for the brushes to soak in. So clean your brush well, and if you need to, you can put it in the bucket to soak. If you grab a brush from the bucket that has the brushes soaking in it, you will need to dry it before you use it for the Mod Podge.